where we must explore. On the sides of all the rocks, what secret it unlocks. Beneath the ground, treasure to be found under arrow falls. Inscriptions on the walls.
Embrace the opportunity to share your knowledge freely, instruct frequently, and interact often with the temple during your waning years. You will be blessed with a longevity that will be more extraordinary than any keeper who has ever come before you. You will face great trials, but deity will reward your sacrifices with commensurate blessings. You will witness at least one miracle, and will find that this miracle is one of the many reasons you end up feeling as if you are younger than you are. When you are given time to meditate, fast, and contemplate the words in the capítulos, ensayos, and selected adios, you will find that ideas for improving the purpose and function of the temple will flow into your mind, and ways to implement those changes will be equally plentiful. As keeper of the soul of Estolia, you will discover what only a few other keepers have been blessed to experience. You will interact with deity directly. You will find great solace in the strength of your personal power and in the communion with deity. Excerpt from A Blessing for Lazarus, Ezekiel Zakarian.
The next morning, the two boys traveled along the northern shore of Lake Eternity. It struck Xavier forcibly that he did not think about Danielle during the previous night. Uncle Antonio, as keeper, was able to understand his struggle, provide him guidance, and direct him to the necessary action that would bring him the greatest growth. Xavier's obsession with Danielle embarrassed him. This was one of the many lessons that deity would give him over the course of his youth. Would he continue to get lessons like this one even after he found his Kaylee? A shiver of anticipation ran through him at the thought of her, the woman who would become the center of his universe. He would be able to wait for her, and when he finally found her, the experience would be extraordinary for having been delayed so long.
We probably will not get to the Arrow Falls until tomorrow sometime,
Max observed. Xavier grimaced at his brother before shifting his buttocks.
You and I may have ridden horses all our lives, but it is different to ride for hours and hours at a time.
Max gave a shout of laughter at that, though Xavier caught him shifting in his own saddle a moment later, careful and a touch gingerly.
The water's throaty roar, where we must explore. On the sides of all the rocks, what secret it unlocks.
They arrived at Arrow Falls the following evening, the steady rush of falling water finally audible as they came over the last rise. They set up a more permanent camp within sound of it, aware they might be there for some time.
Have you thought about where Key put his markings?
Max asked that night. Xavier frowned at his brother.
What do you mean?
Why not Estolia? Corlia? Pequeño? Ancamun? Why only the places where they are now?
I have thought about that.
Xavier said softly.
I'm pretty sure it had to do with the transportation he had available.
He tossed a pine cone into the fire and then said after a moment.
Or
what?
Max asked.
Or we will learn that he went to more places when we get to the seventh secret. Can you imagine the amount of information that he could put on Mount Promesa, or on the elbow of Mount Estoliana?
I hope you brought a lot of sketchbooks then,
Max said. So Xavier woke before his brother. He pulled the sketchbook out of his saddlebag and flipped through the sketches of the mural before pulling out the small watercolor painting of the second secret. The wavy old Estolian number 2 would have been easy to overlook, but the artist who painted it on the ceiling had included a darker shadow beneath the symbol. To someone looking for it, it was obvious. Max, yawning, sat up and asked his brother,
What do we do now?
Good morning, Max.
Xavier said, tucking the watercolor back into the sketchbook. He gestured toward the lip of the falls.
It has got to be the waterfall itself. Maybe the rocks right before the water goes over into Lake Eternity?
Max started to pull on his clothing while he responded.
I guess that means we better start looking.
They had camped a few 100 feet away from the waterfall itself. As the two young men approached on foot, the sun rose over the shoulder of the distant Mount Estoliana, turning the mist rising up from the falls into a brilliant rainbow for a few moments. They both stopped at the cliff's edge and stared down at the falls. It was about 20 feet down to the surface of Lake Eternity, and the river grew wide and shallow just before the waterfall. The resulting curtain of water was almost uniform, falling with a muted rumble to the lake below. The entire cliff face was a mass of rocks, damp with the spray.
It will take us all summer just to find this one secret,
Max complained, before approaching the nearest rock to inspect it and run his hands over the surface. Xavier considered praying for guidance, but didn't want to disturb deity for a trivial request. If the secret was here, there would be some obvious location. Over the next couple of hours, they must have examined 100 boulders. Xavier checked the sketch several times, running out of ideas. They were standing on a ledge halfway down the side of the roaring falls, and after yet another dead end, Xavier leaned back against the cliff face, kicking a rock out of frustration. The rock ricocheted and narrowly missed Max's head.
Watch it.
Max said. His voice shifted from alarm to excitement.
Wait, what is this?
He dropped to his knees and fingered the pale mark left by the rock. Just beneath it, clearly engraved, was the number 2, with an arrowhead added pointing towards the waterfall. Xavier bent over, touching the inscription, before following the direction it was pointing. What had looked like a dead end, the ledge bordered by a boulder, and then the sheer drop-off to the water below, wasn't. Instead, there was a narrow space behind it, leading directly to the curtain of falling water.
Is that it?
Max asked. Xavier shuffled along the narrow strip of stone, gripping the boulder. He stopped at the edge of the water and looked back at his brother, safely standing on the broader ledge.
I think so.
He took a deep breath and stepped through the water, praying to deity for protection. The shock of cold water and sudden darkness gave way to firm footing opening out around him. He stepped forward swiftly, turning just in time to see his brother burst through the wall of water. Max slicked his hair back, smiling broadly as he looked around the cavern. Diffuse sunlight partially illuminated the entrance to the cavern. How extensive the cavern was not obvious. Xavier sucked in his breath when he saw the faint outline of something engraved in stone near where he was standing. Something deeply profound settled over him as he looked around the cavern. Something critical, not only to the future of their quest, but to the future of their nation and the planet itself. He rubbed at his arms, trying to quell the gooseflesh.
How are you going to make out what that says in this light?
Max asked, nodding toward the shadowed carving. The diffuse glow from the falls was enough to reveal that something was there, but not enough to read it. Xavier had not thought that far ahead. When he saw Max pulling matches out of his pocket, along with a half-dozen large study candles from under his jacket, he thumped his brother gratefully on the back.
I realized that it might be dark and hard to start a fire, so I brought supplies.
Once Max lit several candles, Xavier stared at the engraving, trying to imagine the hours it must have taken one man to inscribe such detail into the cavern wall. At first, he thought it was a duplicate of the mural from their ceiling. But once he looked closer, he became convinced that this was the original art from which the mural was created. He studied the image, taking in the detail, the care and precision in every line. He walked up close and touched the miniature image of the arrow falls. There was the number 2. He stepped back and with his eyes traced the location of all the secrets. Would he find additional numerals now that he had the original art?
There is much to be found here, Xavier Archimedes, son of Beauregard Excalibur.
A deeply resonant feminine voice said in his heart and mind. He glanced at his brother, but saw no recognition of the sound of a voice on his face. Like the 8th secret, he kept this latest communication to himself. Over the next several days, Xavier copied both the mural as well as the many inscriptions surrounding it. Unlike the first secret at the mossy rock, which was mostly in an archaic but understandable form of Estolian script. These inscriptions were clearly in a more ancient form, or possibly came from the root languages that eventually formed it. As he had with the first and second secrets, he would copy everything faithfully, and then spend his life trying to understand and organize the information.
A whisper in his mind comforts what you'll find. I'm with you all the time. Her guidance is sublime.